Naomi's knees hit the frozen ground before she could stop herself. Her oldest daughter, Sarah, lunged forward, but it was too late. The old woman's breath came in shallow gasps, her lips already turning blue. "Mama, no. Not here. Not like this." 20 feet away, a single light burned in a cabin window. Naomi lifted her head, ice crystals clinging to her silver hair, and whispered the words she'd sworn she'd never say again. "Please, someone. Anyone." Behind her, 3 daughters stood in the howling snow, waiting to see if their mother's pride would finally break, or if they'd all freeze trying to save it. Before we begin, if you're watching from anywhere in the world, please subscribe to our channel and stay with us until the end of this story. Comment below with your city so I can see how far this journey has traveled. Now let's step into the blizzard. The wind didn't just blow, it attacked. Naomi pushed forward 1 foot, then another, feeling the weight of 58 winters pressing down on her bones. Behind her, 3 shapes moved through the white void. Sarah, 26, and silent. Mary, 24, and still humming softly despite everything. And little Ruth, 22, who hadn't stopped crying since they left the reservation 3 days ago. "Mama, I can't feel my feet." Ruth's voice cracked through chattering teeth. Naomi didn't turn around. If she looked back now, if she saw the defeat in her daughter's eyes, she'd stop. And if she stopped, they'd die. "Keep walking," she said, her voice hoarse from days of screaming at locked doors. "There's smoke ahead." Sarah appeared at her mother's side, her face wrapped in a torn shawl that had once been beautiful. "Mama? That's the 8th cabin this week. They're not going to—" "They will." Naomi's jaw clenched. "They have to." But even as she said it, she felt the lie settle in her chest like ice. The cabin emerged from the snow like a ghost. Small, weathered. A single window glowing with firelight that looked warm enough to make Naomi want to weep. Smoke curled from the chimney, twisting up into the gray sky. Someone was home. Naomi stopped at the edge of the clearing. Her daughters gathered around her, their bodies pressed close, sharing what little warmth they had left. "Maybe we should wait until morning," Mary whispered, "when the storm passes. We won't survive until morning." Sarah's voice was flat. She'd stopped hoping 2 towns ago. Naomi looked at each of her daughters. Ruth's lips were purple. Mary swayed on her feet. Even Sarah, the strongest of them, had started to shake. She thought of her sons. Both dead now. One to smallpox, the other to a soldier's bullet. She thought of her husband killed trying to protect their land. She thought of every time she'd been strong, every time she'd held her family together through hunger, through grief, through forced marches and broken treaties. This was different. This was surrender. "Stay here," Naomi said softly. "If he shoots, run." "Mama." Sarah grabbed her arm, but Naomi shook her off. "If I don't come back out, head east. Find the river. Follow it south." "Mama, no." But Naomi was already walking. Each step toward that door felt like betrayal. Betrayal of her pride, her people, her dead husband, who'd taught her never to beg white men for anything. But pride couldn't keep her daughters warm. Pride couldn't fill their stomachs. Pride couldn't stop the ice forming in their lungs. She reached the door. Her hand, gnarled and weathered, rose up. Hesitated. Behind her she heard Ruth sob. Heard Sarah whisper something sharp to silence her. Naomi knocked. The sound echoed across the frozen clearing loud as a gunshot. Silence. She knocked again, harder this time. Her knuckles split against the rough wood, blood freezing before it could drip. Nothing. "Please." The words scraped out of her throat, raw and desperate. "Please. We need—" The door swung open. A man stood there, backlit by firelight. Tall, broad-shouldered. A revolver hung loose at his hip. His face was shadowed, but she could see his eyes cold, wary. the eyes of someone who'd learned not to trust strangers. Naomi's voice failed her. All the words she'd prepared, all the careful phrases to make herself seem less threatening, less Apache, less other, they died on her tongue. The man stared at her. His gaze moved from her face to the three shapes huddled at the edge of his property. Back to her. "You're bleeding," he said finally. His voice was rough, unused. Naomi looked down at her hand. "Blood and ice. We need shelter. There's a town 5 miles east. They turned us away. There's another town 10 miles west. They did too." Naomi's shoulders sagged. "Everyone has." The man's jaw tightened. He stepped back slightly, his hand drifting toward his gun. Not threatening, not yet, but ready. "I can't help you," he said, and started to close the door. Naomi's hand shot out, catching the edge. "Please." The word came out broken. "Please, my daughters, they're dying. We haven't eaten in 3 days. We just need one night. Just tonight. I'll work. I'll clean. I'll do anything. Please. Please don't." "Mama!" Sarah's scream cut through the night. Naomi whirled around. Ruth had collapsed. Mary knelt beside her sister, trying to pull her up, but Ruth's body was limp, her eyes rolled back. Sarah ran toward them, stumbling through the snow. "Ruth! Ruth! Wake up!" Sarah's voice cracked with panic. Naomi forgot the man, forgot the door, forgot everything except her daughter lying motionless in the snow. She ran her frozen legs, barely holding her, and dropped to her knees beside Ruth. "Baby, open your eyes! Ruth! Ruth!" Mary was crying. "She's not breathing right, Mama. She's not—" "Move!" The man's voice cut through their panic. Naomi looked up. He stood over them, his coat already off. Without asking, without waiting for permission, he scooped Ruth into his arms. The girl's head lolled against his chest. "Get inside," he said. "All of you. Now." Sarah stood frozen, her eyes wide. "But you said—" "I said get inside before I change my mind." He was already walking, carrying Ruth toward the cabin. Naomi struggled to her feet, her legs shaking. Mary helped her, both of them stumbling through the snow. Inside, the warmth hit like a physical blow. Naomi gasped, her lungs burning. The cabin was small, one room with a fireplace, a rough wooden table, a bed in the corner. It smelled like coffee and wood smoke and solitude. The man laid Ruth near the fire, his movements careful despite his size. He grabbed blankets from the bed, wrapped them around the girl's body. "She's hypothermic," he said, not looking at any of them. "How long has she been out in the cold?" 3 days, Sarah whispered. 3. He stopped. Looked at them for the first time, really looked. At their torn clothes, their bare feet wrapped in rags, the hollows under their eyes. "Jesus." Naomi knelt beside Ruth, rubbing her daughter's hands, trying to bring warmth back into those frozen fingers. "Please wake up, baby. Please." The man stood abruptly and moved to a cabinet. He pulled out a bottle of whiskey, poured it into a tin cup. "Get this in her, slow, just a few drops at a time." Mary took the cup with trembling hands. "You 3. He gestured at Naomi, Sarah, and Mary. "Sit by the fire. Take off anything wet." "We're fine," Sarah said quickly. "We just need—" "You're not fine." His voice was sharp. "You're half dead. Sit down before you fall down." For a moment, Sarah looked ready to argue, but then her legs buckled slightly, and Naomi caught her arm. "Do as he says," Naomi murmured. They sat. The fire's warmth was almost painful against Naomi's frozen skin. She watched the man move around the cabin with quick efficiency, filling a pot with water, setting it to boil, pulling out strips of dried meat and hard bread. He worked in silence. His face was hard to read. Angry, maybe, or just tired. Ruth stirred, coughing weakly. Mary cried out in relief, cradling her sister's head. "That's good," the man said, not turning around. "Keep her awake. Talk to her." "Ruth, can you hear me?" Mary's voice was desperate. "It's me. It's Mary. We're safe now. We're inside." Safe. Ruth's whisper was barely audible. Where? A kind man let us in, Mary said, glancing at the stranger's back. A very kind man. The man snorted softly but said nothing. Naomi watched him ladle hot water into cups, his hands steady. No wedding ring, no photographs on the walls. Nothing to suggest anyone else had ever lived here. What's your name? Naomi asked quietly. His shoulders stiffened. For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Elijah, he said finally. Elijah Walker. Most folks call me Eli. Thank you, Elijah Walker. Naomi's voice broke on the words. Thank you for... Don't. He cut her off, his tone sharp. Don't thank me yet. He turned, carrying the cups to them. His face, now visible in the firelight, was younger than she'd expected. Maybe 35. Handsome in a hard way, with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow and shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. Drink, he said, pressing a cup into Naomi's hands. Slow. The water was hot, almost scalding. Naomi drank anyway, feeling it burn down her throat and into her stomach. Beside her, Sarah and Mary did the same. When did you last eat? Eli asked, moving back to the pot. 2 days ago, Sarah said. Some berries we found. Berries. Eli's jaw clenched. In winter. We didn't have a choice. He said nothing to that. Just ladled something that looked like stew into wooden bowls. The smell made Naomi's stomach clench painfully. It's not much, Eli said, handing them each a bowl. Rabbit. Been in the pot for 2 days. Naomi stared at the bowl in her hands. Real food. Hot food. Her eyes burned. Eat, Eli said, his voice softer now. Please. Sarah was the first to move, bringing a spoonful to her lips. She made a small sound, something between a sob and a laugh. It's good. Mama, it's so good. Mary started crying again, this time while eating. Even Ruth managed a few small sips, Mary holding the spoon to her lips. Naomi couldn't move, couldn't eat, could only stare at this stranger who'd given them what 7 towns had refused. Why? She whispered. Eli looked at her. Why what? Why did you let us in? Everyone else. Everyone else is afraid. He sat down heavily on a wooden chair, his face turned away from the fire. Fear makes people cruel. And you're not afraid. I didn't say that. Silence settled between them, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the soft sounds of her daughter's eating. Naomi finally brought the spoon to her lips. The stew was simple rabbit, wild onions, salt, but it tasted like salvation. We won't stay long, Naomi said after a while. Just tonight. Tomorrow's another blizzard, Eli said flatly. Radio said so. You won't make it a mile. Sarah looked up sharply. Then what do you suggest? I suggest you stay alive. Eli stood, abruptly walked to the window. After that, we'll figure it out. We can't impose on your hospitality. My hospitality. Eli's laugh was bitter. Lady, if I'd been hospitable, I would have opened the door the first time you knocked. I only let you in because your daughter collapsed in my yard. Don't mistake necessity for kindness. The words stung, but Naomi understood them. Still, thank you. Eli didn't respond. Just stood at the window, staring out at the storm. Ruth had fallen asleep, her breathing steadier now. Mary covered her with another blanket, then curled up beside her. Sarah remained sitting, her eyes never leaving Eli's back. You live here alone? Sarah asked. Yes. For how long? 5 years. That's a long time to be alone. Eli's shoulders tensed. I like it that way. Do you? He turned then, and the look in his eyes made Sarah fall silent. Pain. Raw and deep. The kind of pain that came from loss too great to speak. You should sleep, Eli said quietly. All of you. I'll keep the fire going. Where will you sleep? Naomi asked. I won't. You can't stay awake all night. I've done it before. His tone left no room for argument. Naomi wanted to protest, but exhaustion was pulling at her like a physical weight. Beside her, Sarah's eyes were already closing. Even Mary had dozed off next to Ruth. Just for a few hours, Naomi murmured, lying down on the floor near her daughters. The wood was hard, but the warmth from the fire was heaven. Just a few. She was asleep before she finished the sentence. Eli watched them sleep. 4 women crowded together on his floor like broken birds. The old one, Naomi, she'd said her name was, had her arms wrapped around the youngest girl, protective even in sleep. The other 2 slept back to back, instinctively guarding each other. He should feel angry. His peace, his solitude shattered by strangers. By Apache women, no less. If anyone found out he'd sheltered them, he'd be lucky if they only ran him out of town. But all he felt was tired. Tired of being alone. Tired of the silence that pressed against his skull every night. Tired of waking up and forgetting just for a moment that Anna was gone. That little Emma was gone. That the life he'd built had burned to ash 3 years ago while he was away buying supplies. He looked at the youngest girl, Ruth. She couldn't be more than 22. Emma would have been 20 now if she'd lived. Eli turned away sharply, his hands clenching into fists. This was a mistake. Come morning storm or no storm, they had to leave. He couldn't do this. Couldn't have people here in this space where he'd learned to live with his ghosts. Couldn't hear voices and laughter and life when all he'd known for 5 years was silence and grief. But even as he thought it, he knew he wouldn't send them away. Not into another blizzard. Not when the old woman had looked at him with such desperate hope. Not when her daughter had collapsed in his yard, blue-lipped and dying. Damn it, he whispered to the empty room. Outside, the wind howled louder. The storm was getting worse. Eli added more wood to the fire and settled into his chair, the rifle across his lap, the darkness beyond the window, and 4 women sleeping on his floor, trusting him with their lives. He didn't sleep, didn't even try. Just watched the fire burn and wondered what the hell he'd gotten himself into. Naomi woke to the smell of coffee. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. Real coffee, not the bitter root tea they'd been drinking on the reservation. She opened her eyes. Dawn light filtered through the window. The storm had quieted to a steady snow, and Eli stood at the stove, his back to her, pouring coffee into tin cups. Naomi sat up slowly, her body aching. Beside her, Ruth still slept, her breathing steady. Sarah and Mary were beginning to stir. You stayed awake all night, Naomi said quietly. Eli's shoulders stiffened, but he didn't turn around. Someone had to watch the fire. You didn't trust us. I don't trust anyone. Fair enough. Naomi stood, her knees protesting. She moved to where Eli stood. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the dark circles under his eyes. Let me, she said, reaching for the coffee pot. I can. So can I. Her tone was firm. You gave us shelter. Let me give you rest. For a moment, he looked ready to argue. Then something in his face softened just slightly. He stepped back. Coffee's in the tin, he said. Bread's in the basket. There's eggs if you know how to cook them without burning. I know how to cook eggs, Elijah Walker. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. Then he moved to the chair and sat down heavily, his whole body sagging with exhaustion. Naomi worked quietly, measuring coffee-cracking eggs into the pan. Behind her, she heard her daughters waking, their soft voices mixing with the hiss of the fire. Mama. Ruth's voice was weak but clear. Where are we? Safe, Mary whispered. We're safe, little sister. Naomi heard Sarah move, heard her footsteps cross the cabin. How do you feel? Sarah asked Ruth gently. Cold, but better. Good, That's good. Naomi glanced over her shoulder. Eli had his head back, eyes closed, but she could tell he wasn't sleeping, just resting, listening to the sounds of life filling his empty cabin. She wondered what he had lost. What had carved those lines into his face put that darkness in his eyes. She wondered if he'd let them stay long enough for her to find out. The eggs cooked, the coffee boiled, and outside the snow continued to fall, trapping them all together in this small cabin at the edge of the world. Naomi poured coffee into a cup and carried it to Eli. "Drink," she said softly. He opened his eyes, looked at the cup, at her. "Thank you," he said. And for the first time since her husband died, Naomi felt something other than grief and fear. She felt hope. The coffee cup slipped from Eli's hand. It hit the floor with a crack that made everyone jump. Brown liquid spread across the wood, steaming in the cold air. "Sorry," Eli muttered, bending to pick up the pieces. "I'll sit down." Naomi's voice was sharp. She grabbed his arm and felt him trembling. "When did you last sleep?" "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're about to collapse." She pushed him toward the bed in the corner. "Sarah, help me." Sarah moved quickly, taking Eli's other arm. Together they half-guided, half-dragged him to the bed. He tried to protest, but his legs gave out before he could form the words. "Just an hour." He mumbled, his eyes already closing. "1 hour, then you need to—" He was asleep before he finished. Naomi stood over him, watching his chest rise and fall. His face, relaxed in sleep, looked younger, vulnerable. She reached down and pulled a blanket over him. "He's not what I expected," Sarah said quietly beside her. "What did you expect? Someone cruel, someone who'd use our desperation against us." Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. "Someone like the others." Naomi thought of the 7 towns they'd passed through. The doors slammed in their faces, the rocks thrown. The man who'd spat at Ruth and called her a savage. The woman who'd threatened to shoot them if they didn't leave her porch. "He's different," Naomi agreed. "But different doesn't mean safe." "You think he'll turn on us?" "I think he's a man alone, and lonely men make unpredictable choices." Naomi turned away from the sleeping figure. "We stay alert. We stay ready to run." Mary had gotten Ruth sitting up, propped against the wall near the fire. The girl's color was better, but she still looked fragile, breakable. "I'm sorry, Mama," Ruth whispered when Naomi knelt beside her. "I ruined everything. If I hadn't collapsed, we could have kept walking." "Hush." Naomi pressed her hand to Ruth's cheek. "You saved us. If you hadn't fallen, he never would have let us in." "You think he meant it, that we can stay?" Naomi glanced at Eli's sleeping form. "I don't know what he meant, but we're here now, and the storm's still coming. We have time to figure it out." Sarah moved to the window, peering out at the gray sky. "It's getting darker. Wind's picking up again." "How much food does he have?" Mary asked, already opening cabinets. "If we're stuck here for days—" "Don't touch anything without asking," Naomi said sharply. "We're guests here, not thieves." "We're not guests either," Sarah said from the window. "Guests are invited. We forced our way in." "He could have said no." "Could he?" Sarah turned her eyes hard. "With Ruth dying in his yard, what choice did we give him?" The question hung in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. Ruth started crying softly. "We should leave. As soon as the storm breaks, we should go. We're not wanted here." "We're not wanted anywhere," Mary said, her voice breaking. "At least here we're warm." "For how long?" Sarah moved away from the window, her movements sharp with frustration. "Until he wakes up and realizes what he's done. Until his neighbors find out. Until— Enough!" Naomi's voice cut through the rising panic. "We don't have the luxury of fear right now. We survive today. Tomorrow can wait." She moved to the stove, checking the fire, low. She added wood, watching the flames catch and grow. Behind her, her daughters settled into uneasy silence. Hours passed. The storm outside intensified, wind shrieking around the cabin's corners. Snow piled against the windows, blocking out what little light remained. Eli slept through it all. Naomi found herself watching him more than she should. The way his hand curled under his chin like a child. The way he muttered in his sleep words she couldn't make out. Once he cried out a sharp, anguished sound, and she almost went to wake him. But then he quieted, and she stayed where she was. "He's dreaming about someone," Mary said softly. She'd moved to sit beside Naomi, her voice barely audible over the storm. "Someone he lost." "How do you know?" The way he cried out. "That's not fear, that's grief." Naomi looked at her daughter. Mary had always been the sensitive one, the one who felt too much, saw too much. "You can't save him, Mary." "I'm not trying to save him, Mama. I'm just—" Mary stopped, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm just tired of everyone being broken. Aren't you tired?" "Yes. God, yes." Naomi was tired down to her bones. Tired of grief and loss and endless walking. Tired of being strong when all she wanted was to fall apart. But she couldn't say that. So she just pulled Mary close and held her while the storm raged. Sarah had found a book on the shelf, a worn copy of something about farming. She sat in the corner, reading by firelight, her face a careful mask. Ruth dozed fitfully, waking every few minutes with a gasp. Night fell. The cabin grew dark, except for the fire's glow. And still Eli slept. Naomi prepared more stew, using the last of the rabbit and some dried vegetables she found in a sack. It wasn't much, but it would feed them for another day. Maybe two if they were careful. She was ladling it into bowls when Eli finally stirred. He sat up slowly, confused, his hair standing on end. "What?" He looked around, taking in the darkness, the fire, the four women watching him. "How long was I asleep?" 8 hours, Naomi said. 8. Eli stood abruptly, swaying. "The storm. I need to check. The storm's worse. Sarah's been watching it. We're snowed in." Eli moved to the window anyway, pressing his face against the glass. Naomi watched his shoulders slump. "How bad?" he asked. "Bad enough that the front door won't open. Snow's drifted against it." "The back door." "Same." Eli turned, and the look on his face made Naomi's stomach clench. Not anger. Something worse. Trapped. Panicked. "Hey." She moved toward him, hands raised. "It's all right. We have food, we have firewood, we can wait it out." "You don't understand." His voice was tight. People can't be—" He stopped, his hand going to his chest. "I need air. I need—" "Mama, what's wrong with him?" Ruth asked, frightened. Eli's breathing was coming too fast now, harsh and ragged. His eyes had gone distant, unfocused. Sarah stood. "He's having a panic attack." "A what?" "I saw it at the mission school. One of the teachers." Sarah moved toward Eli carefully. "Eli. Elijah. Look at me." He didn't respond. "Elijah Walker, look at me right now." Something in her voice cut through. His eyes found hers. "Good. Now breathe with me, in through your nose." Sarah demonstrated her movements, slow and deliberate. "Out through your mouth. That's it. Again." Eli followed her lead, his chest heaving. Once. Twice. Slowly, the panic in his eyes began to fade. "What year is it?" Sarah asked. "What? What year is it?" 1876. "Where are you?" "My cabin, Montana Territory." "Who's here with you?" Eli looked around the room, really seeing them now. "You, your mother, your sisters." "That's right, you're safe. We're safe. Nothing's burning. Nobody's dying." Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. "You're here. You're now. Breathe." He did. Long, shuddering breaths that gradually steadied. Naomi stared at her daughter. "How did you—" "Later, Mama." Sarah didn't take her eyes off Eli. "You all right?" "Yeah." Eli's voice was rough. "Sorry, I don't—" That doesn't usually happen anymore. Doesn't usually mean it never does. He almost smiled at that. No, I guess it doesn't. An awkward silence fell. Eli moved to the table, putting distance between himself and all of them. His hands shook slightly as he poured water from the pitcher. My wife and daughter died in a fire, he said suddenly, his back to them. 3 years ago, I was in town buying supplies. By the time I got back, he stopped, his shoulders rigid. There was nothing left, not even enough to bury. Naomi's throat tightened. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't bring them back. Eli drank the water in one long gulp. I came here after. Built this cabin as far from people as I could get. Haven't had anyone stay overnight since. We can leave, Ruth said quickly. As soon as the storm, you can't leave, look outside. Eli gestured at the window. You wouldn't make it 10 feet. Like it or not, we're stuck together until this passes. Then we'll try not to be a burden, Naomi said. Too late for that. The words stung, but they were honest. Naomi appreciated honest more than kind. Sit down, she said, gesturing to the table. Eat. You need food as much as sleep. Eli hesitated, then sat. Naomi placed a bowl of stew in front of him. He stared at it for a long moment. You cooked, he said. You let us stay. It's the least I could do. I didn't let you stay. I just didn't throw you out. Sometimes that's the same thing. Eli picked up the spoon, took a bite. His eyes closed briefly. It's good. It's your food. Yeah, but you made it taste like something other than survival. Naomi sat across from him. Her daughters remained by the fire, giving them space. Tell me about them, she said quietly. Your wife and daughter. Why? Because grief shared is grief halved, and because you're not the only one who's lost everything. Eli looked at her, then really looked. She saw him taking in her weathered face, her silver hair, the grief carved into the lines around her mouth. Anna, he said finally. Her name was Anna. Met her when I was 20. She had red hair that caught fire in the sunlight. Laughed at all my terrible jokes. Could outshoot most men I knew. His voice softened. Emma was 5. Looked just like her mother. Used to follow me everywhere, chattering about birds and flowers and why the sky was blue. How did the fire start? Lamp oil. Best we could figure. Anna must have knocked it over. House went up like kindling. Eli's hand clenched around the spoon. I should have been there. Should have saved them. And died with them? Would that have made it better? Maybe. No. Naomi's voice was sharp. My husband thought that way. Thought dying for his family was the same as protecting them. All it did was leave me alone to bury him and raise 3 daughters in a world that wants us dead. Eli looked up. What happened to him? Soldiers came. Said we had to leave our land, march to the reservation. My husband refused. They shot him in front of our children. Naomi's voice didn't waver. Couldn't. If she let it shake, she'd shatter. I had 2 sons as well. One died of smallpox on the reservation. The other... She stopped, swallowed hard. The other tried to escape. They found him 3 days later. Hung him from a tree as a warning. The cabin went silent except for the fire's crackle and the wind's howl. I'm sorry, Eli said. Everyone's sorry. Naomi echoed his earlier words. Sorry doesn't bring them back. Something passed between them then. Understanding. Recognition. 2 people who'd lost everything and somehow were still breathing. Why did you leave the reservation? Eli asked. They were going to take my daughters. Said they needed to be educated at a boarding school back east. I've heard what happens at those schools. They cut your hair, beat your language out of you, make you ashamed of who you are. Naomi's jaw clenched. I couldn't let them take my girls, so we ran. Where were you going? Canada. I have a cousin there. Married a French trapper. They have land safety. She looked down at her hands. But we didn't make it. Storm came early. We had no supplies, no shelter. Every town we passed. Her voice broke. Every single door closed in our faces. Until mine. Until yours. Eli was quiet for a long moment. Then, how far to Canada? 200 miles. Maybe less if we can find the river. That's a month's walk in good weather. In winter. He shook his head. You'll never make it. We have to try. Why? So your daughters can freeze to death in the wilderness, so you can all die together and call it dignity. Naomi's temper flared. What choice do we have? Stay on the reservation and watch them destroy my children. Go back and let them take my daughters from me. You could stay here. The words fell like stones into still water. Everyone froze. Sarah stood up slowly from her place by the fire. Mary's eyes went wide. Even Ruth stopped shivering. What? Naomi whispered. Eli looked as surprised as she felt. I didn't mean to say that. But you did. It's a stupid idea. Forget I said anything. No. Sarah moved forward, her voice intense. What did you mean? Stay here how? For how long? I don't know. Through winter, maybe? Until the pass is clear. Eli stood abruptly pacing. It's crazy. People would find out. They'd kill us all, Sarah finished. We know. Then you know why it's impossible. Is it? Naomi asked softly. You're 3 hours from the nearest town. No neighbors, no one to see us. Someone always sees. Not if we're careful. Eli stopped pacing. You're serious. I'm desperate. There's a difference. He looked at her. At her daughters. At the storm raging outside. If you stay, there are rules. What rules? No one goes outside where they might be seen. No fires during the day, smoke draws attention. If anyone comes to the door, you hide. No arguments, no questions, you just hide. Agreed, Naomi said immediately. And come spring you leave. No attachments, no looking back. You go to Canada like you planned. Of course. I mean it. I'm not... Eli's voice roughened. I can't do this again. Can't care about people just to lose them. This is temporary. Survival. Nothing more. I understand. Do you? Because you're looking at me like I'm some kind of savior and I'm not. I'm just a man who's too tired to send you back out into the storm. Naomi stood moving to face him. They were the same height eye to eye. I'm looking at you like you're a man offering my daughters a chance to live through winter. That's all. I don't need you to be anything more. Eli held her gaze. Something flickered in his eyes. Relief maybe, or fear. All right then. You can stay. Sarah let out a breath she'd been holding. Mary started crying quietly. Ruth just closed her eyes, a small smile on her lips. There's not much space. Eli continued, his voice businesslike now. You four can have the bed. I'll sleep in the chair. We can't take your bed. You can and you will. I don't sleep much anyway. He moved to the cabinet, pulling out more blankets. It gets cold at night. Keep these close. And keep the fire burning. If it goes out, we'll all freeze before morning. We know how to tend a fire, Sarah said quietly. I'm sure you do. Eli handed her the blankets. There's a root cellar under the back room. Has potatoes, some dried apples, flour. It's not much, but it'll keep us from starving if we're careful. What about water? Mary asked. There's a pump outside, but with the snow drifted against the doors. Eli frowned. We'll have to melt snow. It takes a lot of snow to make a little water, so don't waste it. We won't. He nodded, then moved to the window again, staring out at the white void beyond. Storm like this could last days, maybe a week. We'll manage, Naomi said. Will we? Eli's reflection in the glass looked haunted. 5 people in one room for a week. We'll probably kill each other before the storm breaks. Or we'll learn to live together. I don't know how to do that anymore. Then we'll teach you. Eli turned, and for the first time since they'd arrived, he almost smiled. Not quite, but close. You're a stubborn woman, Naomi. I've had to be. The storm howled louder, as if in agreement. The cabin shook slightly, old wood groaning under the assault. Get some sleep, Eli said to all of them. I'll take first watch. You just slept for 8 hours, Sarah protested. And I'll sleep again when I need to. For now, I'm awake, and you're all exhausted. His tone left no room for argument. Go on. Naomi wanted to protest, but Ruth was already falling asleep where she sat. Mary could barely keep her eyes open. Even Sarah swayed slightly on her feet. Come on, girls, Naomi said softly. Let's rest while we can. They moved to the bed, a simple frame with a cornhusk mattress that crackled when they lay down. It was cramped with 4 of them, but it was warm and soft and safe. Naomi lay on the edge watching Eli settle into his chair by the fire. He picked up a knife and a piece of wood and started whittling, his movements automatic. Elijah, she said quietly. He didn't look up. Yeah. Thank you. For everything. His hands stilled. Don't thank me yet. Winter's long and people are unpredictable. This could all go bad in 100 different ways. Maybe. But tonight my daughters are warm and fed and breathing. That's enough. Eli resumed whittling. Go to sleep, Naomi. She did, but not before she heard him whisper so soft she almost missed it. Please God, don't let me fail them too. Morning came with a silence so complete it woke Naomi from a dead sleep. She sat up confused. No wind, no howling. Just absolute quiet. Eli was gone. Panic shot through her. She threw off the blankets and stood waking Sarah in the process. What's wrong? Sarah mumbled. Where's Eli? They both looked toward the door. It stood open, letting in a column of pale light and freezing air. He went outside, Mary said from the bed. She'd been awake watching. About an hour ago. Said he needed to check something. In this cold? Naomi grabbed her shawl. He'll freeze. He took his coat and his rifle. That stopped Naomi cold. Why would he need his rifle? Before anyone could answer, Eli appeared in the doorway. Snow covered his shoulders and hat. His face was grim. Storm broke, he said, stomping his boots. But we've got a problem. What kind of problem? Sarah was on her feet now, instantly alert. Eli closed the door and moved to the fire, warming his hands. Tracks, fresh ones, leading right up to the cabin. The air went cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. Someone was here. Naomi's voice barely rose above a whisper. Last night? This morning. Maybe 2 hours ago. Eli's jaw clenched. Looks like one person. Circled the cabin twice, stopped at the window. Did they see inside? Don't know. Probably not through the frost on the glass. But they know someone's here. Ruth started to cry. Mary wrapped her arms around her sister, her own face pale. Who would be out in that storm? Sarah asked. Someone looking for you. Eli's eyes met Naomi's. Or someone who saw the smoke and got curious. What do? We get ready to run. If they come back with others. He stopped moving to the cabinet. He pulled out a second rifle and a box of ammunition. Can any of you shoot? I can, Sarah said immediately. Eli looked at her, assessing. Then he handed her the rifle. It's loaded, 6 shots. Don't waste them. Sarah took the weapon with steady hands. I won't. Mama. I'm scared? Ruth whispered. I know, baby. Me too. Naomi moved to sit beside her daughters, gathering them close. But we're going to be smart. We're going to be ready. Eli was checking his own rifle now, his movements quick and efficient. If someone comes, you 3, get in the root cellar. There's a false wall in the back. Hide behind it. What about you 2? Mary asked. We stay up here, try to talk our way out of it. And if talking doesn't work? Eli didn't answer. He didn't need to. Hours crawled by. Every sound made them jump. The creak of the cabin settling, the crack of ice breaking, the distant call of a crow. Eli stood by the window watching. Sarah sat at the table, the rifle across her lap. Naomi tried to keep her younger daughters calm, but it was like trying to hold water in her hands. "Maybe they won't come back," Mary said hopefully. "Maybe it was just a hunter passing through." "Maybe," Eli said, but his tone said he didn't believe it. Noon came. No one ate. No one could. Then just as the sun reached its peak, Eli stiffened. "Someone's coming." Everyone froze. "How many?" Sarah moved to his side. 3. No, 4. On horses. "Get in the cellar," Naomi ordered her younger daughters. "Now." "But Mama." "Now Ruth." "Take Mary and go." The girls scrambled toward the back room. Naomi heard the trapdoor open, heard them climb down, heard it close again. She turned to Eli. "What do you need me to do? Get down there with them?" "No." "Naomi, this is my fault. These are my daughters they're hunting. I'm not hiding while you face them alone." Eli's eyes flashed with anger. "You're going to get yourself killed." "Then I'll die on my feet instead of cowering in a hole." "You're a stubborn—" He stopped seeing the riders getting closer. "Fine. Stay, but keep quiet and let me do the talking." Sarah moved to stand beside them. 3 people facing the door. 3 people with everything to lose. The knock came hard and loud. "Elijah Walker, open up." Eli's face went carefully blank. He handed his rifle to Naomi, whispered, "Safety's off," then moved to the door. He opened it just wide enough to stand in the gap. "Sheriff Garrett. Didn't expect a visit." "I'll bet you didn't." The sheriff was a big man, heavy in the gut with mean eyes. "You mind stepping aside? We need to search your property." "Search it for what?" "Escaped prisoners. 4 Apache women. Dangerous criminals." "Criminals?" Eli's voice was casual, but Naomi could see the tension in his shoulders. "What did they do?" "Killed a guard at the reservation. Stole supplies. They're armed and hostile." The sheriff tried to peer around Eli. "You see anyone like that around here?" "Nope. Been snowed in for 3 days. Haven't seen a soul." "That's so." Another voice spoke up. Younger. Eager. "Then whose tracks are those leading to your door?" Eli didn't miss a beat. "Mine. Went out this morning to check my traps." "That's 4 sets of tracks, Walker. You got 4 feet now." "Must be from before the storm. Wind does funny things to snow." The sheriff's eyes narrowed. "You're lying." "I'm telling you I haven't seen anyone." "Then you won't mind if we look around." "Actually, I do mind. This is my property, and I don't recall inviting you in." "We don't need an invitation to hunt fugitives." "You need a warrant, or probable cause. You got either of those." The sheriff's face reddened. "Don't get smart with me, boy. I knew you when you were running around in short pants. I know what you are, a drunk who couldn't even protect his own family. Now step aside before I drag you aside." Something dangerous flickered across Eli's face. Sarah shifted beside Naomi, her hand tightening on the rifle. "You talk about my family again," Eli said quietly. "And we're going to have a problem that has nothing to do with Apache women." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." Silence stretched taut as wire. Then a third voice spoke up. Older. Calmer. "Eli, it's me. Thomas." Eli's posture changed slightly. "Doc." An older man dismounted, moving forward. "Let me talk to him, Sheriff. We go back." The sheriff spat in the snow. 2 minutes, then we're coming in whether he likes it or not." Doc Thomas stepped closer to the door. He was maybe 60 with kind eyes and gray hair. "Eli, I know you're a good man. But if you're hiding those women, you need to let them go. I told you I haven't seen anyone. These men will burn your cabin down around your ears if they think you're lying. They've already done it to 2 other places. Doc's voice dropped. Please, son. If they're here, give them up. Save yourself. There's no one here, Doc. I swear it. Doc studied his face for a long moment. Then he sighed. All right. I believe you. Like hell, the sheriff snarled. Get out of the way, Thomas. Boys, get ready to... Wait. The 4th rider suddenly spoke up. Smoke from the chimney. Everyone looked up. Sure enough, gray smoke curled into the sky. So, Eli said, I've got a fire. It's winter. You want me to freeze? That's a lot of smoke for one man. I was cooking. Cooking what? Stew. Want some? I made plenty. The young deputy laughed. Yeah, I bet you did. Made enough for 4 maybe. Eli's face stayed calm, but Naomi saw his hand drift toward his belt, toward where his knife sat. This is your last chance, Walker, the sheriff said. Open this door, or we'll open it for you. You'll have to go through me first. That can be arranged. The sheriff reached for his gun. Sarah stepped forward, rifle raised. I wouldn't do that if I were you. The sheriff's hand froze. His eyes widened as he took in Sarah standing there, weapon-steady eyes hard. Well, well, he said slowly. Looks like we found one. Looks like you found 2, Naomi said, moving to stand beside her daughter. She raised Eli's rifle, pointing it square at the sheriff's chest. And we're both real good shots. Mama, no. Ruth's voice floated up from the cellar. Don't hurt them. Mary's voice joined her. Please, we'll go quietly. Just don't shoot anyone. The sheriff smiled slow and mean. Sounds like you got all 4. Boys, we're going to be heroes. You're going to be dead if you take another step, Sarah said. You won't shoot. You're Apache. You know what happens to Indians who kill white men? They hang you. They hang your whole family, even the babies. Then we've got nothing to lose, do we? Sarah's finger moved to the trigger. Sarah, wait. Eli's voice cut through the tension. Nobody's shooting anybody. Eli, put the rifle down. But put it down. That's an order. Sarah hesitated, then slowly lowered the weapon. Naomi did the same, her heart hammering. Eli stepped outside, hands raised. You want them, they're yours. But you let me and Doc Thomas witness that you're taking them peacefully. No rough treatment, no accidents on the way back to the reservation. You're in no position to make demands. Actually, I am. Because if anything happens to these women, I'll make sure everyone knows the sheriff of this county murdered unarmed prisoners. Doc here will back me up. Won't you? Doc? Doc Thomas looked uncomfortable but nodded. I will. The sheriff's face turned purple. You're protecting savages over your own kind. I'm protecting human beings, something you've apparently forgotten how to do. You're a traitor. I'm a man with a conscience. Difference is I can sleep at night. The sheriff's hand moved toward his gun again, but Doc Thomas stepped between them. Enough. We came for the women. Let's take them and go. Fine. The sheriff gestured to his deputies. Get them out here, all 4. Naomi felt her world crumbling. She looked at Eli, betrayed. You said... I said you could stay through winter. Winter's not over. Eli's eyes locked on hers, and she saw something there. A plan. A desperate, crazy plan. Doc, you'll witness they're being treated fairly. I will. And Sheriff, you'll give them food and water for the journey. Don't push your luck, Walker. I'm not pushing anything. I'm asking you to act like a Christian instead of an animal. Think you can manage that? The sheriff's jaw worked, but he nodded stiffly. All right then. Eli turned to Naomi. Get your daughters. Time to go. Naomi's hands shook as she lowered the rifle. Sarah stood frozen beside her, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," Eli whispered so soft only they could hear. "Trust me." Naomi didn't trust him, couldn't. But what choice did she have? She moved to the trapdoor and called down. "Mary, Ruth, come up. We're leaving." Sobbing echoed from below. Then slowly, painfully, her daughters emerged. The four of them stood together holding each other. The deputies moved forward with rope. "That's not necessary," Doc Thomas said sharply. "They're cooperating." "Protocol says they get tied," the young deputy said. "Indians can't be trusted. These women are half frozen and unarmed. They're not a threat." "Sheriff." The sheriff considered. "Tie the older two. The young ones look ready to collapse anyway." The deputies moved forward. Rough hands grabbed Naomi's wrists, yanking them behind her back. The rope bit into her skin. Beside her, Sarah gasped as they did the same to her. "Not so tight," Eli said. "You'll cut off their circulation." "Shut up, Walker. You're lucky we're not arresting you for harboring fugitives." "You could try." The sheriff's eyes narrowed. "Maybe I will. Maybe I'll burn this place down after all, just to teach you a lesson. Touch this cabin and I'll—" "You'll what you're one man. We're four, with the law on our side." Doc Thomas stepped forward again. "Sheriff, enough. We have what we came for. Let's go." The sheriff spat in the snow again, this time at Eli's feet. "You're done in this territory, Walker. No one's going to trade with you. No one's going to help you. You'll starve before spring." "I'll manage. We'll see about that." The deputies hauled Naomi and Sarah forward. Mary and Ruth followed, holding each other, crying openly now. Naomi looked back at Eli. He stood in the doorway of his cabin, his face unreadable. She wanted to curse him, to scream at him for giving them up. But something in his eyes stopped her. "Thank you," she said instead, "for the shelter, even if it was temporary." "It wasn't temporary," Eli said. "It was necessary. There's a difference." "What difference?" "Temporary things end. Necessary things." He paused. "Necessary things find a way to continue." Before she could ask what he meant, the deputies yanked her toward the horses. They were put on one horse, all four of them crowded together. The young deputy took the reins, leading them like cargo. As they rode away from the cabin, Naomi looked back one more time. Eli still stood there watching. Doc Thomas had moved to stand beside him, speaking urgently. Eli shook his head at whatever the doctor said. Then they were too far away to see anything more. The journey was brutal. The deputies didn't stop for rest, didn't give them water, even when Ruth started coughing. They rode hard and fast, putting distance between them and Eli's cabin. Naomi's mind raced. What had Eli meant by those final words? What plan was he hinting at? Or had she imagined the whole thing? Maybe he'd simply gotten tired of them, seized the opportunity to hand them over. Maybe— "Mama, look," Sarah whispered suddenly. Naomi followed her daughter's gaze. Behind them, far in the distance, a single rider followed. Too far away to see clearly, but Naomi knew. Eli. "He's following us," Sarah breathed. "Don't look," Naomi hissed. "Don't let them know." But it was too late. The young deputy had noticed their glances backward. He turned in his saddle, squinting. "Sheriff, someone's behind us." The sheriff pulled up short. They all looked back at the distant rider. "It's Walker," the sheriff snarled. "That fool. What's he want?" "Same thing he wanted back at his cabin, to stick his nose where it doesn't belong." The sheriff turned to his men. "You two keep moving with the prisoners. Me and Jenkins will deal with Walker." "We should all stick together," Doc Thomas protested. "This territory isn't safe." "I didn't ask for your opinion, old man. You want to help?" "Keep these women moving. Get them to the reservation by nightfall." Doc Thomas looked torn but finally nodded. The group split. The sheriff and one deputy rode back toward Eli. Doc Thomas and the young deputy continued forward with Naomi and her daughters. "This isn't good," Mary whispered. "They're going to hurt him." "He knew the risk," Sarah said, but her voice shook. Naomi watched the sheriff and his deputy disappear over a ridge heading toward Eli. She wanted to scream to warn him, but what good would it do? He knew they were coming. He'd followed anyway. "Why would he do this?" Ruth asked. "Why would he risk himself for us?" "I don't know, baby." But that was a lie. Naomi did know. She'd seen it in Eli's eyes that first night. The same look her husband used to get when he talked about protecting their family. The look that said some things mattered more than safety. Some things were worth dying for. "Doc," Naomi said carefully, "what will the sheriff do to him?" Doc Thomas didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was heavy. "Nothing good. Garrett's been itching for a fight since his boy died last year. Got drunk and fell off his horse, broke his neck. Sheriff blamed everyone but himself. Been mean as a snake ever since." "Will he kill Eli?" "He might. Or he might just beat him half to death and call it justice." Doc looked back, his face troubled. "Eli's a good man. Broken, but good. I tried to tell him to let you go, that you weren't worth dying for." He stopped, realizing how that sounded. "I didn't mean—" "We know what you meant," Naomi said quietly. "You're not wrong. We're not worth it." "Mama, don't say that," Sarah protested. "It's true. We're just 4 desperate women trying to survive. He has a whole life here, a home, a future. Why would he throw it all away for us?" "Maybe because he doesn't have anything anymore," Doc said softly. "Some men, when they lose everything, they stop caring about consequences. They just start doing what's right because nothing else matters anymore." "Is that what Eli is?" "I think so. Ever since Anna and Emma died, he's been like a ghost. Alive, but not living. Maybe helping you made him feel human again. Maybe—" Gunshots echoed across the valley. 3 of them, sharp and clear in the cold air. Mary screamed. Ruth started praying in Apache, her voice rising and falling. Sarah went rigid, her eyes fixed on where the shots had come from. Naomi felt her heart stop. "No," she whispered. "Please, no." The young deputy yanked on the reins, stopping the horse. "What do we do, Doc?" "We keep moving. The sheriff can handle himself." "But what if—" "We keep moving." They rode on, but slower now. Everyone listening, waiting for more shots. None came. Minutes passed like hours. The sun began to sink toward the horizon, painting the snow orange and red. Then finally 2 riders appeared behind them, the sheriff and his deputy. Alive, unharmed, and no sign of Eli. Naomi's throat closed up. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Sarah made a sound like a wounded animal. The sheriff rode up alongside them, his face smug. "Problem solved." "Where's Eli?" Doc Thomas demanded. "What did you do?" "What needed doing? He drew on us. We defended ourselves." "You're lying. Eli wouldn't—" "Are you calling me a liar, old man?" Doc Thomas stared at the sheriff, at the blood on his sleeve. "Did you kill him?" "We defended ourselves," the sheriff repeated. "What happened after that is between Walker and God." Naomi felt something break inside her. All the years of loss, of grief, of holding herself together through impossibility, it all came crashing down. "You murdered him," she said, her voice shaking. "He was trying to help us, and you murdered him. He should have minded his own business. He was a better man than you'll ever be." The sheriff's hand moved fast, cracking across her face. Naomi's head snapped back. She tasted blood. "Mama?" Sarah lunged forward, but the deputy grabbed her. "Touch them again," Doc Thomas said, his voice deadly quiet. "And I'll make sure everyone in 3 counties knows what kind of man you really are." "You threatening me, Doc?" "I'm promising you. I've kept my mouth shut about a lot of things over the years, Garrett. But if you hurt these women, I'll tell everyone everything. About the stolen cattle. About your son's death. About what really happened to that Mexican family last summer." The sheriff went pale. "You've got no proof." "I've got 30 years of people trusting me. Who do you think they'll believe?" A tense silence fell. The sheriff's face worked rage and fear battling for control. Finally, he jerked his horse around. "Fine. We'll deliver them undamaged. But after that you keep your mouth shut about all of it, including Walker." "Including what happened to Walker," Doc agreed. They rode on. Naomi slumped forward, the ropes cutting into her wrists, her face throbbing from the blow. Beside her, Sarah was crying silently. Mary had her face buried against Ruth's shoulder. Ruth just stared ahead, her eyes empty. "I'm sorry," Doc Thomas whispered. "I'm so sorry." "For what?" Naomi's voice was flat. "For not stopping them, for not saving him. For all of it. For every door that closed in your faces, for every cruel word, for every—" His voice broke. "For every way we've failed to be human. Your apologies don't bring him back. I know." They rode through the dying light shadows stretching long across the snow. The reservation loomed ahead, dark buildings against a darker sky. Naomi looked back one last time toward where Eli had been. Where she imagined his body now lay cooling in the snow. He'd given them shelter when no one else would. He'd opened his door, his home, his carefully guarded heart. And it had killed him. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the empty air. "I'm so sorry we brought death to your door." The wind carried her words away, swallowing them into the vast indifference of the winter night. The reservation gates stood like the entrance to hell. Naomi felt them before she saw them, iron bars driven deep into frozen ground, topped with wire that caught the last light like broken teeth. Beyond them, rows of identical wooden buildings stretched into darkness. Smoke rose from a few chimneys, but most sat cold and empty. "Home sweet home," the young deputy muttered. "Shut up, Miller," Doc Thomas snapped. The sheriff rode ahead to speak with the guards. Two men in army uniforms, rifles slung over their shoulders, bored expressions turning sharp when they saw what was being delivered. "Found them at Walker's place," the sheriff called out. "All four. No trouble." One guard laughed. "Walker. That drunk hermit didn't think he had it in him to hide anyone." "He didn't. We convinced him otherwise." "Bet you did." The guard moved to open the gates. "Commandant's been looking for these ones. There's a reward." "I know. We'll collect it tomorrow." The gates swung open with a scream of metal on metal. The sound went through Naomi like a knife. Sarah's hand found hers, squeezing hard. "Mama, I can't go back in there." "We don't have a choice." "There's always a choice. We could run, right now. We could— and die in the snow." "Sarah, we're tied up, surrounded by armed men, and your sisters are barely standing. Running would be suicide." "Maybe that's better than this." Naomi looked at her daughter's face, saw the desperation there, the wild edge that came from being caged too long. She'd seen that look before in her son's eyes the night before he'd tried to escape. The night before they'd hung him. "No," Naomi said firmly. "We stay alive. That's all that matters. We stay alive and we wait for our chance." "What chance? Mama, Eli's dead. The only person who gave a damn about us is dead. There's no chance anymore." "There's always a chance, as long as we're breathing." But even as she said it, Naomi felt the lie of it, felt hope slipping away like water through her fingers. They were pulled off the horse and shoved toward a building marked Processing. Inside, a woman sat behind a desk, her face pinched and mean. She looked up as they entered. "4 returns," the sheriff said. "Escapees from 2 weeks ago." The woman consulted a ledger. "Names? Naomi, Sarah, Mary, Ruth." "Last names?" "We don't use white names," Sarah said coldly. The woman's lips thinned. "You'll use them here, or you'll get nothing. No food, no beds, no—" "Standing Bear," Naomi interrupted. "Our name is Standing Bear." The woman wrote it down with sharp, angry strokes. "Strip them. Search them for weapons or contraband." "What?" Mary's voice rose in panic. "No, please, we don't have anything." Standard procedure for returns. Take them to the back room. Two female guards appeared from a side door. Older women with hard eyes and harder hands. They grabbed Mary and Ruth, dragging them toward the back. "Don't touch my daughters." Naomi lunged forward, but the ropes held her fast. "Please, they're just children. They're prisoners who tried to escape. They'll be treated as such." The woman behind the desk didn't even look up. "Sheriff, your reward will be processed by morning. You're dismissed." The sheriff tipped his hat. "Pleasure doing business with you, ma'am." He left without looking back. The young deputy followed. Only Doc Thomas remained, his face anguished. "I'll stay," he said. "Make sure they're treated fairly. Civilians aren't permitted past this point. I'm the town doctor. I have authority to—" "You have no authority here. This is federal land under federal jurisdiction. Leave now or be removed." Doc Thomas looked at Naomi. "I'm sorry. I'll try to come back check on you." "Don't bother," Naomi said. Her voice was empty. "You've done enough." He flinched like she'd struck him. Then he turned and left, his shoulders bowed under the weight of his failures. The guards cut the ropes from Naomi's and Sarah's wrists. Blood rushed back into their hands, painful and bright. Before they could react, they were pushed toward the back room. Inside, Mary and Ruth stood naked, shivering, while a guard pawed through their clothes. Ruth was crying silently, her arms wrapped around herself. Mary's face was blank, gone somewhere far away where this couldn't touch her. "Your turn?" the guard said to Naomi and Sarah. "No," Sarah said. "Wasn't a request." "I said no." The guard moved fast, grabbing Sarah's hair and yanking her head back. "You want to do this the hard way, because I'm good at the hard way." "Sarah, don't fight," Naomi said quickly. "Just do what they say." "But Mama, do it." Sarah's eyes filled with tears of rage, but she complied. They both did, stripping down while the guards watched and poked through every piece of clothing, every inch of their belongings. "Nothing," one guard said finally. "They're clean." "Told you," Sarah muttered. "Get dressed. You're going to Building 7. They pulled their clothes back on with shaking hands. Ruth couldn't stop crying. Mary hadn't made a sound since they'd entered the room. "Building 7, Naomi asked. "Where is that women's detention for escapees and troublemakers? How long do we stay there?" "Until the commandant decides you've learned your lesson. Could be weeks, could be months, could be forever, depending on how cooperative you are." They were marched outside, across the frozen yard, past other buildings where faces pressed against grimy windows. Children's faces, mostly. Thin and hungry and hopeless. Building 7 sat apart from the others, surrounded by higher fencing. The door was iron-heavy with a small barred window at eye level. A guard unlocked it and pushed them inside. The smell hit first. Unwashed bodies, sickness, despair. Then the cold. No fire, no heat, just the bare minimum to keep them from freezing to death. Women filled the room, maybe 30 of them, sitting on the floor or on narrow cots shoved against the walls. They looked up as Naomi and her daughters entered, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile to utterly empty. "New arrivals," the guard announced. "Escapees. You know what that means." A few women hissed. Others just turned away. The guard left, locking the door behind him with a clang that echoed like a death knell. Naomi stood there, her daughters pressed close, and felt the last of her strength drain away. They'd survived the storm, survived the journey, survived the sheriff's cruelty. But this. How did anyone survive this? "You're the ones who killed that guard," a voice said from the corner. An older woman, maybe 70, with white braids and knowing eyes. "They've been talking about you for weeks." "We didn't kill anyone," Naomi said wearily. "Doesn't matter if you did or didn't. That's what they're saying. That you're dangerous. That you're murderers." The old woman smiled without humor. "Welcome to the special section. They put the worst of us here. The ones they want to break completely before they kill us." "Kill us." Ruth's voice was tiny. "They're going to kill us. Not right away. They'll work you first, starve you, freeze you, make you wish you were dead. Then, when you're good and broken, They'll finish the job. The old woman's eyes held terrible certainty. I've seen it happen to 23 women in the 2 years I've been here. Mary made a sound like a wounded animal. Sarah just stood there frozen. Naomi wanted to comfort them, to tell them it would be all right, but she couldn't force out the lie. Find a spot, the old woman said, not unkindly. Might as well get comfortable. It's going to be a long night. They found an empty corner and huddled together. The cold seeped up through the floor, through their clothes, into their bones. Around them, other women coughed and moaned and whispered prayers in languages Naomi half recognized. I miss Eli's cabin, Ruth whispered. I miss the fire, and the warm food, and... She stopped, swallowing hard. I miss feeling safe. We were never safe, Sarah said bitterly. We just didn't know it yet. He tried to help us. And look where that got him. Dead in the snow, probably frozen solid by now. Sarah, Naomi snapped. That's enough. Why? Because the truth hurts. Because you don't want to admit that everything we touch turns to death. He made his own choice. We should have made it for him. Should have left that first night before he got attached. Before... Sarah's voice broke. Before we killed another good man. Naomi had no answer for that. Because Sarah was right. Everywhere they went, death followed. Her husband. Her sons. Now Eli. I'm cursed, Naomi whispered. I must be cursed. Why else would everyone who helps us die? Mary finally spoke, her voice hollow. Maybe we're not meant to survive. Maybe we should have died with Papa and the boys. Maybe... Stop it. The old woman from the corner had moved closer. All of you stop it right now. I've seen this before. Seen women talk themselves into giving up. Don't do it. Don't let them win. They've already won, Sarah said. Look around. We're in a cage. We're going to die here. Maybe. Probably. But you don't have to die defeated. You don't have to die believing you deserved it. What difference does it make how we die? All the difference in the world. The old woman sat down beside them. I'm Ayanna. I was a healer before they brought me here. Before they took everything. What did they take from you? Naomi asked. My husband. My 3 sons. My 2 daughters. My 12 grandchildren. Ayanna's voice didn't waver. They killed them all in one night. Said we were harboring rebels. We weren't. We were just a family trying to live. How are you still alive? I hid in the root cellar. Coward that I am, I hid while my family burned. Ayanna looked at her hands. I think about that every day. About how I should have died with them. But I didn't. I'm still here. And some days I think that's my punishment. To survive when everyone I loved is gone. The words hit too close. Naomi felt tears burning in her eyes. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, be angry. Be stubborn. Be alive. Ayanna reached out and gripped Naomi's shoulder. They want you to give up. Every indignity, every cruelty, it's designed to break your spirit. Don't let them. I don't know how to keep fighting. Yes, you do. You escaped once, didn't you? Made it all the way to that cabin. And they caught us anyway. But you tried. That's more than most of these women can say. They've accepted their fate. You haven't. Not yet. Ruth was listening now, her tears slowing. Mary had turned to look at Ayanna. Even Sarah seemed less hostile. How do we fight? Ruth asked. We're locked in, surrounded, outnumbered. You fight by staying human, by taking care of each other, by not letting them turn you into animals. Ayanna gestured around the room. See those women? Half of them are so far gone, they don't even know their own names anymore. Don't become that. Hold on to who you are no matter what they do to you. And if we can't, Mary whispered, then you die. Simple as that. Die broken or die whole, but one way or another you die. At least if you die whole, you die as yourself." Silence fell. Naomi looked at her daughters, saw them processing Ayana's words. "Mama, what do we do?" Ruth asked finally. Before Naomi could answer, the door opened. A guard stood there with a bowl and a bucket. "Dinner," he said, dropping both just inside the door. "And water. Share it or fight over it. Don't much care which." He left. The door locked again. Women surged forward, pushing and shoving. Someone screamed. Someone else cursed. The bowl filled with what looked like gruel spilled across the floor. Women dropped to their knees, scooping it up with their hands, shoving it into their mouths. Naomi turned away, sickened. "Don't look away," Ayana said softly. "That's what hunger does. Turns people into desperate creatures. If you're smart, you'll learn to be more desperate than everyone else. I won't fight other prisoners for scraps. Then you'll starve, and your daughters will starve watching you." Naomi's hands clenched into fists. She looked at Sarah, at Mary, at Ruth. All of them thin, all of them weak from days of running. She stood up and moved toward the chaos, grabbed the bucket of water before anyone else could reach it, kicked away a hand that reached for it. "Back off," she snarled. "This is mine." A woman lunged at her. Naomi swung the bucket, catching her in the face. The woman fell back, cursing. "Anyone else?" Naomi's voice carried across the room. "Anyone else want to try me?" The women backed away. They'd seen that look before. The look of someone with nothing left to lose. Naomi carried the bucket back to her daughters. "Drink, fast, before they change their minds." They drank, passing the bucket between them. The water was brown and tasted like rust, but it was wet, and it was theirs. "Good," Ayana said approvingly. "You learn fast. I'm not proud of what I just did. Pride's a luxury. Survival's a necessity. You'll learn the difference." The night dragged on. Women settled into their spots. A few fights broke out over cots and blankets. Guards didn't intervene. Just let them fight it out. Naomi held her daughters close, sharing what little body heat they had. Ruth fell asleep first, exhausted from crying. Mary followed, her breathing shallow. Sarah stayed awake, staring at the ceiling. "He's really dead, isn't he?" Sarah whispered. "Eli?" "I don't know. I heard the shots. 3 of them. You don't walk away from 3 shots. People survive worse." "Do they?" Sarah turned to look at her mother. "Or is that just something we tell ourselves to get through the night?" "I don't know anymore." "Mama, I'm scared." "Me too, baby. Me too." Sarah hadn't called her mama in years. Not since she'd turned 14 and decided she was too grown for such things. Hearing it now broke something in Naomi. "I'm sorry," Naomi whispered. "I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you. Couldn't save you from this." "You tried. That's more than most parents did." Around them, the building settled into uneasy quiet. Women slept or pretended to. Guards walked by outside, their boots crunching in the snow. Naomi drifted into something like sleep. Dreams came dark and twisted. She saw Eli lying in the snow, blood spreading beneath him. Saw her husband hanging from a tree. Saw her sons, one burning with fever, the other swinging from a rope. She woke with a gasp, her heart racing. The door was opening. A guard stood there with a lantern. "You 4," he said, pointing at Naomi and her daughters. "Commandant wants to see you, now." "It's the middle of the night," Sarah protested. "He don't sleep much. Come on, don't make me drag you." They stood on shaking legs and followed him out into the cold. Across the yard, past silent buildings, to a larger structure that stood at the center of the compound. Inside, warmth hit them like a slap. A fire burned in a hearth. Carpets covered the floor. Pictures hung on walls. It looked like a home, not a prison. The commandant sat behind a desk, reading by lamplight. He was younger than Naomi expected, maybe 40, with neat hair and cold eyes. "The escapees," the guard announced. "Thank you, Harrison." That'll be all." The guard left, closing the door behind him. The commandant studied them for a long moment. "You've caused me considerable trouble. 2 weeks of searching, wasted resources, damaged reputation." He stood up, moving around the desk. "Do you know what happens to Indians who cause trouble?" None of them answered. "I asked you a question." "We get punished," Naomi said quietly. "Punished? Yes. But what kind of punishment fits running away, making me look foolish in front of my superiors?" He stopped in front of Ruth, looking her up and down. "You're the youngest, 22? Ruth nodded, trembling. "Pretty thing. Could be useful in other ways." His hand reached out, touching her hair. Ruth flinched back. The commandant smiled. "Or maybe the older one. More spirit." He moved to Sarah. "You've got fire in you. I like fire. Makes the breaking more satisfying." Sarah spat in his face. For a moment, everything froze. Then the commandant wiped his face slowly, his expression never changing. "Harrison," he called. The guard burst back in. "Sir." "Take this one to solitary. 2 weeks. No food. Water only." "No." Naomi lunged forward. "Please. She's just a girl. She didn't mean." "She meant it. And she'll learn what happens to Indians who assault white officers." The commandant's eyes were ice. "As for the rest of you, work detail starting tomorrow. Dawn to dusk. Digging latrines. If you collapse, you work anyway. If you die." He shrugged. "Well, you won't be the first." "Please," Mary begged. "We'll do anything. Just don't separate us. Don't take Sarah." "Too late. Harrison, take her." The guard grabbed Sarah's arm. She fought, twisting and kicking, but he was stronger. He dragged her toward the door. "Mama!" Sarah screamed. "Mama, don't let them!" The door slammed shut. Sarah's screams echoed from outside, then faded as they dragged her away. Naomi felt something inside her snap. All the fear, all the grief, all the rage she'd been holding back, it broke free in one awful moment. She launched herself at the commandant, got 3 good hits in before the guard came back and pulled her off. She fought him too, biting and clawing like an animal. "Mama, stop!" Mary was crying. "Please stop!" They wrestled her to the ground. She tasted blood, didn't know if it was hers or the commandant's. "Spirited family," the commandant said, dabbing at his bleeding lip. "I like that. Makes the breaking so much more rewarding." He looked down at Naomi. "You just earned yourself a week in solitary, too. Harrison, take her." "What about these 2? The guard gestured at Mary and Ruth. "Leave them in general population. Let them watch what happens to troublemakers. Let them learn." "No." Naomi struggled harder. "Please don't separate us. They're just children." But the guard was already dragging her away. The last thing she saw was Mary and Ruth standing there holding each other, their faces white with terror. Then she was outside, being hauled across the yard to a small building that sat by itself. The guard unlocked the door and shoved her inside. The cell was 6 feet by 6 feet. No windows. No light once the door closed. Just cold stone walls and darkness. The door slammed shut. The lock turned. And Naomi was alone. She screamed until her voice gave out. Pounded on the door until her hands bled. Then finally she collapsed in the corner and wept. For Sarah, locked away somewhere in the same darkness. For Mary and Ruth, alone and terrified. For Eli, who died trying to save them. For her husband and sons, gone forever. For herself, because she'd failed them all. The darkness pressed in, heavy and suffocating. Time lost meaning. Was it still night? Had morning come? She couldn't tell. She thought she heard voices. Sarah calling for her. Ruth crying. But it might have been her imagination, might have been ghosts. She thought about giving up. About just lying down and letting the cold take her. It would be easy. Peaceful. An end to all of this. But then she heard Ayana's voice in her head. You fight by staying human. And Eli's, necessary things find a way to continue. Naomi pulled herself up, felt along the walls until she found a corner, sat down there, knees pulled to her chest. I'm still here, she whispered to the darkness. Still alive, still fighting. The darkness didn't answer, but somewhere in its depths, she felt a small spark of defiance catch and hold. They hadn't broken her yet, and if she had anything to say about it, they never would. 3 days passed in the darkness before Naomi realized she'd stopped counting time. The door opened without warning, flooding the cell with light that stabbed her eyes like needles. She threw up her hands, gasping. Get up! A guard's voice different from Harrison. You're being moved. Where? Her voice came out as a croak. Where are my daughters? Move! Now! He grabbed her arm and hauled her to her feet. Her legs buckled. She hadn't stood in days, but he didn't slow down, just dragged her across the yard. Not back to Building 7. Somewhere else. A smaller building she didn't recognize. Inside warmth. A fire. And Doc Thomas standing beside a cot, his medical bag open. What happened? Naomi tried to pull away from the guard. Is someone hurt? Are my daughters? They're alive, Doc said quickly. Sit down. Let me examine you. The guard shoved her onto the cot and left, locking the door behind him. Doc moved closer, his face grim. He lifted her hands, studying the cuts and bruises. When did you last eat? I don't know. What day is it, Woy? Thursday. She'd lost 4 days. 4 days in the darkness, and she couldn't remember most of it. Your daughters have been asking about you constantly, Doc said, cleaning her wounds with careful hands. The younger two are working the latrines. The oldest, Sarah, she's still in solitary. How long? 11 days now. Commandant extended her sentence when she refused to apologize. Pride and fear warred in Naomi's chest. That's my girl. That's a dead girl if she keeps it up. Doc's voice was sharp. Naomi, you need to understand what's happening here. The Commandant isn't just cruel, he's methodical. He's breaking you piece by piece, and when you're broken enough, he'll kill you and call it justice. Then we'll die unbroken. You'll die either way. Doc set down the cloth with more force than necessary. Don't you understand? I've been trying to find a way to help you, but there's nothing I can do. The Commandant has absolute authority here. The sheriff's backing his story about Eli. Nobody's going to question. Wait. Naomi grabbed his wrist. What story about Eli? Doc's face went pale. You don't know. Know what? The official report says Eli attacked them, that he was drunk, unstable, that he drew his weapon first. That's a lie. Of course it's a lie. But it's the lie everyone's going to believe because it's convenient. Doc pulled away, pacing. The truth is, they shot him in the back, left him to bleed out in the snow. I found the body 2 days ago. The words hit like physical blows. Body. Eli was really dead. She'd hoped stupidly that maybe he'd survived somehow. But no. Where is he now? Naomi's voice was hollow. I buried him. On his property near where his wife and daughter are. Doc stopped pacing. I said words over him. It wasn't much, but thank you. The words caught in her throat. Thank you for giving him that much. They sat in silence. The fire crackled. Outside, guards shouted orders. Why are you here? Naomi asked finally. Why did they let you see me? Because you're sick. Or they think you are. Probably pneumonia from the cold cell. Doc met her eyes. I told them you might die without treatment. The Commandant doesn't want you dying before he's done with you. So you're here to keep me alive long enough to suffer more. I'm here because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try. Doc sat down beside her. Naomi, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to really think about it. If I could get you out, just you, not your daughters, would you go? No. Don't answer so quickly. Think about, I said no. Naomi's voice was steel. I don't leave without my girls. even if staying means watching them die. Even then, we survive together or we die together. That's all there is. Doc's shoulders sagged. I was afraid you'd say that. Can you get them out? My daughters. Maybe Mary and Ruth. They're still in general population. But Sarah, she's in the deep cells. High security. I'd need help. Key's a distraction. He shook his head. It's impossible. Nothing's impossible. You just haven't thought of the right way yet. Naomi? The door burst open. The guard was back. Time's up, Doc. Commandant says she's well enough to work. She's barely standing? Not my problem. The guard grabbed Naomi's arm. Move. Wait. Doc pulled something from his bag, a small cloth bundle. Take this. It's bread and dried meat. Hide it. Naomi stuffed it into her dress before the guard could see. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just stay alive. The guard dragged her out into the cold morning. Across the yard to where a group of women stood with shovels and picks. Mary and Ruth were among them. Mama! Ruth broke from the line and ran to her. The guard let them embrace for exactly 3 seconds before pulling them apart. Get in line, all of you. Naomi stood between her daughters, drinking in the sight of them. Thinner, bruised, but alive. Where's Sarah? She whispered. Still in solitary. Mary whispered back. They won't let us see her. Won't tell us if she's... Her voice broke. She's alive. She has to be. How do you know? Because I'd feel it if she wasn't. A mother knows. The guard was shouting instructions about digging new latrine trenches. The ground was frozen solid. The work would be brutal. They worked until noon without rest. Naomi's hands bled through the cloth wrappings. Ruth collapsed twice, was kicked back to her feet. Mary worked in grim silence, her face a mask. During a brief water break, Ayanna appeared beside them. Your oldest daughter, the one in solitary. She's alive, but barely. How do you know? Naomi asked. I have friends, people who see things. Ayanna glanced around, making sure no guards were listening. They're planning to move her tomorrow, to the territorial prison in Helena. Once she's there, you'll never see her again. Naomi's heart stopped. Tomorrow. Dawn. They're taking 3 prisoners. She's one of them. We have to stop them. How? You can't even get near the solitary cells without being shot. Then we'll find a way. Naomi gripped Ayanna's arm. Help me, please. I helped you with food, with water. Help me save my daughter. Ayanna was quiet for a long moment. Then, there might be a way, but it's dangerous. Probably suicide. I don't care. You should, because if it fails, they'll kill all of you, slowly. If they take Sarah, we're dead anyway. At least this way we die trying. Ayanna studied her face. All right, tonight, after lights out. Be ready. The afternoon dragged on. More digging. More pain. Ruth collapsed again and couldn't get up. The guard was reaching for his whip when Mary stepped between them. I'll do her work, Mary said. Just don't hit her. The guard considered. Then he nodded. You got 1 hour to finish both sections. If you don't, you both get the whip. Mary worked like a woman possessed. Naomi tried to help, but the guard stopped her. She volunteered. Let her prove herself. They watched Mary dig her small frame, shaking with effort. 45 minutes in, she was crying but still moving. 50 minutes, and she'd nearly finished both sections. At 58 minutes, she completed the last shovelful and collapsed. The guard checked the work, nodded. Acceptable. Get her up. Naomi and Ruth pulled Mary to her feet. She could barely stand, but she was smiling through her tears. I did it, she whispered. I actually did it. I'm so proud of you, Naomi said, holding her close. So proud. Finally, as the sun set, they were marched back to Building 7, fed thin gruel and stale bread, given water that tasted like metal. Naomi shared the food Doc had given her with Mary and Ruth, making them eat every crumb. What happens tonight? Ruth asked quietly. We get your sister back. How? I don't know yet, but we will. The hours crawled by. Women settled into sleep. Guards changed shifts. The moon rose outside the barred windows. At midnight, Ayanna appeared at their corner. It's time. They stood. Ruth was shaking so hard she could barely walk. Mary had gone pale but determined. Naomi felt nothing but cold purpose. What's the plan? Naomi asked. Fire, Ayanna said simply. We start a fire in the east corner. Everyone panics, including the guards. In the chaos, you three slip out and head for the solitary building. How do we get in? This. Ayanna held up a key. Stole it off a drunk guard last week. It opens the solitary cells, but only for another few hours before they realize it's missing. Where did you learn to pick pockets? I had a misspent youth. Ayanna pressed the key into Naomi's hand. Get your daughter. Get out. Head west into the mountains. There's an old mining camp about 20 miles out. Abandoned, but it has shelter. Hide there until spring, then make for Canada. What about you? I'm staying. Someone needs to make sure the fire keeps burning long enough for you to escape. They'll kill you for this. Probably. Ayanna smiled sadly. But I'm 73 and tired. If I die helping 4 women escape this hell, that's a better death than I deserve. Ayanna. No arguments, no time. Ayanna moved toward the east corner. When you hear screaming, run. Don't look back. Don't stop for anything. She disappeared into the darkness. Naomi grabbed her daughter's hands. Ready, she whispered. No, Ruth said honestly. Me neither, Mary added. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Stay close to me. When I say run, you run. Understand? They nodded. Seconds ticked by. Then smoke. Lots of it pouring from the east corner. Women started coughing, waking up confused. Then someone screamed, "Fire! Fire!" Chaos erupted. Women stampeded toward the door, pounding on it. Guards rushed in, trying to maintain order. More smoke billowed thick and choking. In the confusion, Naomi pulled her daughters toward a side door usually locked, but in the panic a guard had left it open while he ran to fight the fire. They slipped through. Outside, the cold hit like a slap. Naomi oriented herself quickly. Solitary building was north past the commandant's quarters. Stay low. Stay quiet. She led them along the shadows of buildings, avoiding the main paths. They made it halfway when a guard stepped around a corner. Everyone froze. The guard's eyes widened. His hand moved toward his rifle. Mary grabbed a rock from the ground and threw it. It hit him square in the temple. He went down hard. Did I kill him? Mary's voice shook. Naomi checked. He's breathing. Come on. They ran. Behind them, shouts echoed. The alarm had been raised. The solitary building loomed ahead. Naomi fumbled with the key, her hands shaking so badly she dropped it twice. Finally, the lock turned. Inside, a long corridor with cells on either side. Iron doors with small barred windows. Most were empty. But from the third cell on the left, she heard breathing. Sarah, Naomi called softly. Mama. The voice was weak, confused. Is that you, or am I dreaming again? I'm here, baby. I'm real. Naomi tried the key in the lock. It didn't fit. That's the outer door key, Sarah said. Each cell has its own lock. Where are the keys? Guard station. End of the hall. Naomi ran. The guard station was empty. Everyone was fighting the fire. She grabbed the key ring off the wall, ran back. 8 keys. She tried them one by one. 4th key, the lock clicked. She yanked open the door. Sarah sat in the corner, barely recognizable. Her face was swollen, one eye completely shut. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. She was so thin, Naomi could count her ribs through the torn dress. Oh, baby. Naomi dropped to her knees beside her daughter. What did they do to you? Doesn't matter. You came for me. Sarah tried to smile, winced. You actually came. Did you think I wouldn't? Hoped. Didn't dare believe. Can you walk? I can crawl if I have to. Sarah grabbed Naomi's arm and pulled herself up. Her legs shook, but they held. Mary and Ruth crowded into the cell, crying, hugging their sister. For a moment, they just held each other, a family reunited in the darkness. Then, shots rang out. They know we're gone, Naomi said. We have to move. Now. Supporting Sarah between them, they moved down the corridor. Back outside. The whole compound was lit up now, torches everywhere, guards running. How do we get out? Mary asked desperately. The fence, Sarah gasped. West side. There's a weak spot. I saw it while they were moving me between buildings. They ran toward the west fence. Behind them, dogs started barking. The guards had released the hounds. Faster, Naomi urged. They reached the fence. Sarah pointed to a section where the posts had rotted. There, pull the wire up. They pulled. The wire lifted, creating a gap barely big enough to crawl through. Ruth first. Naomi pushed her youngest daughter toward the gap. Go. Ruth squeezed through her dress, catching and tearing. Mary went next, smaller, faster. Your turn, Naomi said to Sarah. I can't fit. I'm too big. You're going through even if I have to push every inch of you. Move. Sarah dropped to her belly and started crawling. Halfway through, she got stuck. The dogs were getting closer. Guards were shouting. Push! Naomi grabbed Sarah's legs and shoved with everything she had. Something tore dress or flesh, she couldn't tell, but Sarah popped through to the other side. Naomi started through, got her head and shoulders clear when hands grabbed her ankles. Got one, a guard yelled. Mama! Sarah reached back through the fence, grabbing Naomi's hands. Hold on. They pulled from both sides. Naomi screamed as her body was stretched between them. The guard yanked harder. Then Ruth appeared, swinging a large rock. She brought it down on the guard's head with a sickening crack. He let go. Naomi shot through the gap like a cork from a bottle. Run! She gasped. They ran. 4 women in torn dresses, no shoes, no supplies, running into the frozen wilderness with guards and dogs behind them. They ran until their lungs burned, until Ruth started coughing blood, until Sarah collapsed and couldn't get up. Leave me, Sarah gasped. You can move faster without... We don't leave anyone, Naomi said firmly. Mary, help me with your sister. They hauled Sarah to her feet and kept moving. The sounds of pursuit grew louder. Torches bobbed in the darkness behind them. Then, ahead, a light, small and steady. What is that? Mary asked. As they got closer, they saw a cabin, small, isolated smoke curling from its chimney. No, Sarah whispered. We can't. We can't bring danger to anyone else. But Naomi was already stumbling toward it. She had no choice, no strength left. Nothing but desperate hope. She pounded on the door. Please, please help us. The door opened, and Eli stood there. Naomi's legs gave out. She would have fallen if he hadn't caught her. You're dead, she whispered. The sheriff said... The sheriff lied. Eli's voice was rough, his left arm in a sling, a bandage visible under his shirt. Get inside, all of you, now. They stumbled into the warmth. Eli slammed the door and barred it. How? Naomi couldn't stop staring at him. How are you alive? Turns out I'm harder to kill than they thought. One bullet grazed my head, knocked me out. Another hit my shoulder. The third missed. He moved to the window, peering out. I woke up hours later, half frozen. Made it back to my cabin. Found you gone. I thought... I know what you thought. That's what they wanted everyone to think. Eli grabbed his rifle. I've been watching the reservation for days, waiting for a chance to get you out. Then I saw the fire, saw you running. Figured you could use a safe house. The guards are coming, Mary said urgently. With dogs. I know, I can hear them. Eli's face was grim. We don't have much time. Then what do? We make a stand. Eli checked his rifle, then handed Sarah a revolver. Can you shoot with that eye swollen? I can shoot blind if I have to. Good, because you might have to. He turned to Naomi. There's a rifle behind the door. You remember how to use it? I remember. Mary Ruth, get in the back room, under the bed. Don't come out until we tell you. But now. The younger girls disappeared into the back. Eli positioned himself at the front window. Sarah took the side window. Naomi stood by the door. The sounds of dogs and men grew louder. Then silence. They waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. Why'd they stop? Sarah whispered. They're surrounding us, Eli said. Getting into position. A voice called out from the darkness. The sheriff. Walker. We know you're in there with those escaped prisoners. Send them out, and we'll let you live. Eli didn't respond. Last chance, Walker. We've got 20 men. You can't win this. Don't need to win, Eli shouted back. Just need to make it expensive enough that you decide it's not worth it. They're escaped criminals. It's our duty to. Your duty is to murder women for the crime of wanting to live, that the law you're upholding. Sheriff, they killed a guard. That's a lie and you know it. Doc Thomas's voice cut through the night. He was out there too. There was no dead guard, I checked the records. A moment of confused silence. Doc, get out of the way, the sheriff snarled. No, not this time. I've stayed quiet too long. Let too much evil happen because I was afraid. Doc's voice grew stronger. These women didn't kill anyone. They just wanted to live, to be free. And we've done everything we can to destroy them for it. You're going to get yourself killed, old man. Maybe. But at least I'll die doing the right thing for once. More voices joined Doc's. Other people from town drawn by the commotion. Doc's right, someone said. Ain't no dead guard. I work at the reservation. I'd know. This ain't right, another voice agreed. Hunting women like animals. They're not animals, a woman's voice spoke up. They're mothers and daughters, just like us. The sheriff's voice turned desperate. They're Indian savages. You're all going to defend savages over white people. We're defending human beings over murderers, Doc said firmly. There's a difference. Naomi felt something crack open in her chest. Hope. Real hope for the first time in years. Eli? She whispered. Are they really? They're really? He confirmed, his voice thick with emotion. The sheriff was shouting now, but his men were backing away. The townspeople were moving between them and the cabin, forming a human barrier. Stand down, Garrett, Doc called. It's over. You've lost. Like hell. The sheriff raised his rifle. A shot rang out. Not from the cabin, from the crowd. The sheriff's rifle flew from his hands. Next one goes through your head. A grizzled old man said, his own rifle smoking. I'm a better shot than you ever were, Garrett. Try me. The sheriff looked around at the faces surrounding him. Hostile faces, unforgiving faces, faces that had finally seen too much cruelty. This isn't over, he spat. Yeah, Eli said from the doorway, appearing with his rifle raised. It is. You're done. This town is done with you. The sheriff's face twisted with rage. Then slowly he lowered his hands. His remaining deputies did the same. Get out of here, the old man with the rifle said. And don't come back. You're not welcome in this territory anymore. The sheriff and his men retreated into the darkness. The crowd watched them go, then turned to the cabin. Doc Thomas stepped forward. Eli, the women, are they all right? They're alive. That's more than they should be. Can we help? Do they need medicine, food? They need safety. Think your town can provide that? The townspeople looked at each other. Then one by one they nodded. We can't undo what was done, Doc said. Can't bring back the lives lost or fix the suffering. But we can do better going forward. We can be better. Words are cheap, Sarah said from behind Eli, her voice hard. They are, Doc agreed, which is why we're offering more than words. Shelter, food, protection, for as long as you need it. Why? Naomi stepped forward. Why now? Where was this kindness when we were knocking on doors freezing starving? It wasn't there. Doc said honestly. We were cowards, afraid of standing out, of making trouble, of losing what little comfort we had. But Eli, he showed us what courage looks like, what it means to do the right thing even when it costs you everything. He looked at the cabin, at Eli standing guard. We won't waste this chance. We won't fail you again. Naomi looked at her daughters. Sarah beaten but unbroken. Mary and Ruth emerging from the back room, hope dawning on their faces. She looked at Eli, who'd risked his life twice to save them. She looked at these townspeople, strangers, who'd finally found their courage. All right, she said. We'll stay, but not on the reservation, not as prisoners. As neighbors, a woman in the crowd said. As friends, if you'll let us. That'll take time. We've got time. Doc smiled. Winter's long, but spring always comes. And maybe by spring, we'll have learned how to be the people we should have been all along. The crowd dispersed slowly, families heading home, but leaving behind supplies. Food, blankets, medicine. Kindness too late for some, but not too late for these 4 women. Inside the cabin, Eli built up the fire, while Naomi tended to Sarah's wounds. Mary and Ruth curled up together, finally letting themselves believe they were safe. What happens now? Sarah asked through split lips. Now we heal, Naomi said. We rest. We survive. And then we live. Really live. Not just survive, but live. Eli brought them hot stew. Real stew with meat and vegetables, and enough for seconds. They ate in silence, too overwhelmed for words. Later, when her daughters had fallen asleep, Naomi found Eli standing at the window watching the darkness. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything. For opening your door that first night. For following us. Her voice broke. For caring when no one else did. I couldn't not care, Eli said simply. Once I saw you saw your daughters, I couldn't just walk away. Couldn't go back to the empty life I'd been living. What changed? You did. Your strength. Your refusal to give up even when you had every reason to. He turned to face her. You reminded me that there are things worth fighting for, people worth saving, including myself. Naomi moved closer, took his hand. We saved each other, I think. Maybe we did. They stood together in the firelight, 2 broken people who'd found wholeness in the most unlikely place. Outside, snow began to fall, gentle and clean, covering the blood and pain with white silence. Spring will come, Naomi said softly. It will. Eli agreed. And when it does, we'll still be here, all of us, together. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Naomi believed him. Because sometimes, even in the darkest winter, even when every door has closed and hope seems dead, one door opens. One person says yes. One spark catches and spreads until the whole frozen world begins to thaw. This was that door. This was that person. This was that spark. And they would burn bright enough to light their way home.